Well, today we're finally talking about the Canon EOS R because I finally got my pre-order. So let's get into this video. Well, hey, what's up? My name is Tony and I'm a filmmaker photographer in the St. Louis area. Today we're talking about the Canon EOS R5. I finally got my pre-order. It's right here and it's beautiful. And right now, we are shooting on the Canon EOS R6 because I wanted you to see the difference in color between the R6 and the R5, because I know that that was a conversation that a lot of people have had, is that the color is garbage on the R6, which I disagree. I do think that it's slightly different than the R and some of the other cameras, but for me personally, I really like the colors and the colors that I can get out of this. I think that the 10-bit 422 color bit depth really helps, and so let's see what the difference between that and the R5 is. All right, here we go for the switch. Okay, we are on the EOS R5 finally. It looks beautiful. Just to let you know, I am shooting in 4K standard UHD IPB, and the reason why is because that is exactly what the R6 does. So I had somebody ask me in the community post that I did on YouTube, can I see the difference between the R5 standard 4K and the R6 standard 4K? So here it is right next to each other, IPB versus IPB. Now, you want to see the all eye? Let's do that. Okay, we are in all eye now. It looks so much better, doesn't it? You probably can't even tell the difference. I'm gonna be honest with you, shooting on the R6 lately has made me decide that I am probably gonna shoot in IPB a lot more. And one of the major reasons why is because the file sizes are so much more manageable, and I really just do not see the video quality difference. I know, I'm not shooting in full HQ, DCI, 4K, 24, all eye, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the way that I shoot, even I did a job a couple days ago with the R5 and I was testing it out, and I decided, you know what? I'm just going to shoot in IPB. And I realized that the R5 shooting in 4K UHD, 24 frames per second, IPB, the files are still bigger than my C200 files. So just to let you know, that's kind of some of the comparisons, and I'll probably get into like file sizes comparison between the R5, the R6, and then the C200, because those are kind of like the standard file sizes that I need to be working with. So lots of things to talk about, but let's talk about some of my first impressions with the R5. The first thing that I noticed is, believe it or not, I missed the screen on top of the camera, which I didn't think I would. With the R6, you've got that dial, and the biggest problem that I have is, like I've said in the past, I am 100% a hybrid shooter. I shoot hybrid all of the time, and one of the biggest advantages of that little screen isn't the fact that you can see what's on top of it, but you can instantly change from video to photo and back without removing the camera from your face. And I just have not found how to do that with the R6. I have to, it's got it right here, I have to be, while I'm shooting it, I have to pull it down and then adjust it to the M or the video mode. There's no way to do that when I'm holding the R5 and the EOS R. I hit mode, info, and boom, I'm instantly in my video settings. And I kind of missed that. I didn't realize that I would. I kind of thought that the dial would be really nice, and I liked having the dial back, but apparently it didn't. So, another thing that I noticed is a lot of people made a big deal about the screen. This is the R6, by the way, shooting on the R5 still. The screen is so much smaller on this R6. I literally cannot see a difference between this screen and that screen. So, for all it's worth, those who complained about the screen being smaller or less quality on this one, it's not. That's just something that I've noticed. All right, another thing that I've noticed is that the R5 has more like grippy coverage on the outside of the camera, which I thought was kind of interesting. I guess the R5 is a little bit more weather sealed than the R6, but I'm telling you, I've had this out in rain now. I've had it out in completely covered in dust, and I am not worried about either one of these cameras when it comes to weather, just so you know. Also, I've noticed that the R5's grip is a little bit bigger than the R6's grip, this part right here. To the point where I actually like the R6, the way that it fits in my hand much better. Not much better, just a little better than I do the R5. But at the end of the day, they're very similar. The ergonomics are very similar. The buttons are all in the same place. They both have the little joystick that everyone complained about not having. And I am really happy to have both of these two cameras in my kit. Now let's talk about that real quick, because I'll set this down. I just made a video on the C70 and whether or not I should get the C70 or the R5. And the bottom line is it came down to price. I had budgeted kind of for these two cameras back in July, and that's kind of where I set my gear pace for the rest of the year. And when they came out with the C70, that would have bumped it up another couple grand. And I just decided, you know what? Right now, the way that I shoot with being a hybrid shooter, the R5 is a perfect camera for my A cam, and the R6 is a perfect B cam. If I would have swapped out for the C70, even though I do a ton of video, there's just times when I want to switch over to photo, and I don't think that I would have been able to do that. Now, does that mean I'm never going to get the C70? I will probably get it next year. You guys know that. But for now, I think that the R5 and the R6 is a perfect combo. So many things to talk about. I really haven't had a ton of time working with this camera yet. I'm maybe 400-500 shots into the shutter count, which isn't really a shutter count anymore because of the electronics and blah, blah, blah. So I don't have a ton of experience. I do know that the R5's files are hard to work with when it comes to video in the computer. But that's the same with the R6, and everybody knew that. And bottom line is that this camera, believe it or not, has both of these cameras have kind of helped me understand the ease of making proxies. When you're talking about proxies, yeah, everyone complains about it being just another step in the process, but for me, I mean, I dump all my footage into the folder, get it all backed up, throw it into Premiere, and then what I'll do is any of the footage that I need to get a proxy, I'll just highlight it all, right-click, and hit Create Proxy. And it makes a new folder in that folder that I've already created and pumps it out in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I mean, I'm not working with terabytes of footage for the projects that I've been doing with these cameras so far. And so, you know, I just make a quick proxy, and there's a button in Premiere Pro that you can toggle right on your main toolbar that goes in between your proxies. So like I'll turn it off when I'm coloring a little bit, or regardless. But Premiere Pro does the majority of the work for proxy files. I've heard that the R5 can actually create a proxy file in camera after you shoot it. I haven't messed with any of that, but at the end of the day, I mean, and there's even times when I don't even have to make proxies, especially with the R6 footage. It's just really easy to use, and you can just pump it out. I know one of the other editors that I work with, Logan, we were just talking. I shot like 45 minutes, 50 minutes worth of footage on the R5 for video that we were doing. It was kind of a talking head, kind of teaching kind of video. I was shooting on the R5 with a 70-200 on a Ronin for like an hour. Stupid heavy, but it was really cool footage. And he said that even with the C200, 2 layers of C200 and then the R5, he was still able to play that footage back without creating a proxy at half resolution. So for all it's worth, it is now we're working on iMac Pros, but regardless, for what it's worth, like, you don't have to create proxies. But for me, spending that 15 minutes when I go fill up my coffee cup and I come back and the proxies are made, and then I can toggle it on and off real quick, and it just speeds up my workflow within the computer significantly. So that is an option. All right, let's talk about another thing that I've noticed about the R5. I haven't noticed that the photos are overly sharp, and that was something that I was worried about when it comes to that 45 megapixel sensor. Now with the R6, it's got a 20 megapixel sensor, and I just think that the photos are beautiful, just incredibly beautiful. And the R5 is a very similar look, and in fact my style works really well with both of them together. I don't have to change that style too much for both of these cameras when I'm adjusting them in Lightroom. With the R5, I was a little worried about it being over sharpened, and that was because when I've used other, like the A9 or so, it's got a pretty high megapixel sensor as well. The image can look like over sharpened, and I was worried that I was going to have to lower my sharpening in post processing. But really, I mean, they're really good looking images, and so I will probably do all of my portraits from now on the R5, and then keep my R6 as a backup camera in my bag for when I need that. Another thing that I've noticed is low light comparison. I haven't really noticed a big difference between the R5 and the R6 yet. The theory is the 35 millimeter sensor, the bigger the megapixels are, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, the smaller the pixels are, because you've got 35 millimeters of a sensor, and if there's 20 in there, they're going to be twice the size, theoretically, as a 45 megapixel sensor, meaning that those pixels will let in more light. I haven't really noticed a big difference. In fact, this video compared to the beginning of this video, I'm shooting 24 frames per second, shutter speed's 1/50th, aperture's f1.8, and then I left my ISO exactly at the same 400. And I'll throw the same grade on there, and you can see the differences. Maybe I'll even do like a comparison between the two cameras so that you can see what that looks like. So low light, this room is not really low light, but I don't feel like the R6 is significantly brighter than the R5. All right, before we move on, why don't I pull up, if you haven't already, I post a lot of pictures in the YouTube app. I posted last week, this is a picture of the R5, and I just said, you know, let me know what you want to talk about. And so there's a couple things in here that I want to just quickly mention. The first comment was, please compare the R5 and the R6 for regular 4K 24 frames per second, which we've already done. I've already did that video for you. There you go. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if I'm gonna shoot in HQ. I shot a little bit in it, and I shot in 4K 60 HQ all eye, and I filled up a CF Express Type V card like in 10 minutes. I've got like 128 gig, and I just don't know if the quality bump is worth it when you're talking about that HQ footage. And I mean, I've shot in it a little bit. So anyways, let's keep going. All right, so somebody else commented, let's talk about the R6 versus the i5, general preference with considerations of workflow, results, and pros and cons for each. We've done that a little bit in this video. I'm gonna be honest with you, I am not sold on the R5 yet. I think there's a lot of extra features in there that are really cool, but man, this R6, this is a perfect camera for most people. Like, I love this camera. I love the way that it fits in my hand. I love the file sizes that I'm working with, all of those types of things. So, like, if you were to ask me today, should you buy the R5 or the R6, budget not considered, I'd probably say the R6 because I really like this camera. But I haven't had nearly as much time with the R5 yet. So maybe having those extra features in there, like 8K, there's occasionally times when I'm probably going to use that. You know, some of the other features, like the bigger megapixel sensor. Who knows? Maybe I'll fall in love with this camera and go from there. Super random video, but we're gonna keep talking through things. I'm just kind of processing with you what I've thought about this camera. I thought about getting the R6. I thought about getting 2 of those, but I already had this one on pre-order, and I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna keep it, and it'll be good to have the differences, and then if I need the versatility for a job, I've got it. All right, let's keep going here. So, portraits, and how about testing a large scale print? Good idea. I may try and do that at some point. The biggest I print is like I've gotten like 11 by 20 or something on my wall right now. That's probably the biggest I'm gonna print. So the 20 megapixels is probably fine, but the 45 megapixels might look a little bit different. So I'm gonna try and do something on that. Another thing here is another question. Let's talk through this. Is how much megapixels do you have in crop mode? That is a great question. Let's test that out right now. So for photos, when you crop in, say you're using crop mode or you're using EFS lens, this is what you get. If you're doing video, there is no difference in crop mode. You're still getting the same kind of megapixel count. It's just you're cropped in, so your footage looks a little different. All right. Another comment that somebody said is the EOS R versus R5 1080. We will get into that video because I'm curious about what the 1080 looks like. Good thought, good thought. Okay, another thing that someone said is sports photos test. I don't do a ton of sports, but we'll try and get some high action. I think that the R5 is going to be just a killer camera for that. One, because well, I think both of the R6 and the R5 would work really well. The 20 megapixels would just kind of chew through whatever you need. They both shoot up to 20 frames per second, so you're going to get that action shot that you need. But with the R5, the biggest advantage is you can just kind of spray, pray and spray, kind of just point your camera in the right general direction. The AF is going to lock on. And then once you're in post, you can kind of recompose because you've got those extra megapixels to work with. And then the last comment that I see here is please video test EOS R versus R5, both 4K and 1080. We'll talk about that. I thought there was one other one. Just looking through here. Yeah. All sorts of good things. So we will continue to do some tests between the EOS R, the R5, the R6. Bottom line, these are all great cameras. We live in 2020 when we can get cameras, that are just incredible, and they have all the features that I love and work into my workflow. So let me know what you think about the R5. Feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what your thoughts are and what you want to see. And we will also be just talking about tons of different test footage. By the way, I'm thinking about doing another one of those sample cinematic videos where I upload some R5 footage so that you can see it in your computer. And I'll try and do a lot of the different modes. There's just so many modes. It's confusing. Like, it's overwhelming how many video modes there are. When it comes to photos, this camera's incredible, just like the R6. I mean, honestly, there's nothing that I would change about either of these cameras when it comes to photo. I love the autofocus. I love the settings. I don't feel like the colors come out weird. It's perfect cameras for photos. And so when I'm doing portraits, when I'm doing event coverage, here's a shot that I did just yesterday morning at an event. I was just getting some really nice bokeh. I love the way that all of my lenses work with the cameras. It's great. So, yeah, other than that, it's a good camera. We'll talk a lot about video because that's where it really gets interesting and there's some diversity that we can get into. One other thing, we've been shooting for 16 minutes in all eye, blah, blah, blah. I'm not shooting in HQ because file sizes are gigantic, but no overheating issues. No overheating issues ever. I mean, like I said earlier, I shot for like an hour, didn't have any overheating issues. I mean, if you're gonna shoot in 4K 120 frames per second for 30 minutes, I don't know what you would use that footage for or why you would even shoot that. We were doing some test footages last week where I was playing around with the R5 and the R6. I had the R6 shooting up at the bottom of a plate, and we were trying to do some some cool, it's kind of a science experiment. But anyways, left the camera on for like 10 minutes shooting in 4K 120. Huge file size. We use about 20 seconds of it. But even then, the camera did not overheat or even have an overheat warning. So if you're worried about these cameras overheating, I'm telling you, as a professional, as somebody who uses these cameras day in and day out, they do not overheat on me. So you gotta literally try to make it overheat if you want it to overheat. All right, guys, that's it for this week. This video I know is getting long, but it's gonna be a good one. I'm excited about the R5. Let me know your questions. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we've got another video coming up very shortly. I'm trying to do one on Tuesday and on Friday, but Fridays is the go-to video for me, and we'll try and sneak in a couple extras there throughout the week. All right, guys, Have a good week. We'll see you soon.